so on. Ni hao ma. Wo shi han hao. This morning, on my morning walk, I began to think of an essay, a writing that I did called Less is More. And I was reminded that both in the West and in the East there are proverbs that speak to this, that say things like people who have enough and know they have enough will always have enough. Or in the West, the less a person has and is content with, the closer to the gods are they. And I went and got a writing that I did. It's something that I believe I sent to Luke Lynn in the past, and he may have worked with you on it, but I thought I would just simply go over it. I started by saying, an old Irish proverb proclaims, a dog owns nothing, yet is seldom dissatisfied. A cow owns nothing, yet is always happy. Less is more. And then I begin to talk about my own experiences here in Soldiers Grove. One winter, I began to look at all of my books, all of my CDs, and all of my DVDs, and I began to sell them on Amazon. Now, I sold several hundred American dollars worth of books and CDs and DVDs to other people on the internet. What was most interesting to me was that many of these books were books that I had not read. I had bought them, but I had not read them, or I had bought them and I had read part of them but did not finish them. And then there was music that I listened to, music that I might have listened to one time and then not again, or maybe one or two times but not again. So I realized I had made many purchases that I really would not have had to make. I also at the same time looked around, and I looked in my closets, and I looked in my drawers, and I looked in my sporting goods, and I auctioned off a number of items that were just sitting here. Now I found the same thing with that. Some of them I had never used. I had saw them, I wanted them, I bought them, but then they were never used. Or others were used only a little bit. So again, I realized that oftentimes I would develop a want for something. It obviously was not a real need, because after I purchased it, I maybe did not use it at all. And I got to thinking that, yeah, many things look good, but most of the things that look good to us are not necessary or essential. I say Madison Avenue keeps promoting by their advertising purchase of more and more things. In America we call it Madison Avenue. What we're talking about is advertising. On television, on the internet, in the mail, all of these come-ons that we receive to buy items. It just stokes our wants. It makes our wants get bigger. And I thought about how in the wintertime, when I'm sitting here and I'm restricted because there's snow outside and it's cold and I can't do things, I'll start dreaming about the spring and about the summer. And I'll think, wow, I should buy this piece of camping equipment, or I should buy this toy that I can use in the summertime. And I will sometimes do so. I will have a weak moment and I will buy something. And then guess what happens? Summer comes, and sometimes I don't even use that new piece of camping equipment. I find that wants easily become needs. In my English words, wants easily morph into needs. Now I find that I am fairly mature when it comes to what we call trying to keep up with the Joneses next door. I don't find that I look over next door and see what my neighbor has, and then I want to have the same, or I want to have something better. I want to have a better car. I'm pretty good about that. So I don't have a problem with what we call in America keeping up with the Joneses. I was reminded of automobiles. I had a big Dodge pickup truck, and I really liked that big, macho, manly pickup truck. It had a roar, a rumble to it when you drove it, the big V8 engine, and it sounded good, and I enjoyed it. But you know, I wasn't really using it, and the gas mileage was very low. I didn't need that big truck to drive to my camp. I didn't need it to go to the post office. I didn't need it to go grocery shopping, or just simply for a pleasure ride. So I sold it and bought a small Ford Focus. Now I'm just as happy with the Ford Focus. It serves all of my needs. It is much smaller. It gets 2 times as good of gas mileage. I can get 34, 35, 36 miles to a gallon of gas with my Focus. All I could get with my Dodge pickup was maybe 16 or 17, and that on a good day. So what I realized is I didn't need as big of an automobile. I wish I had thought about that when I was younger. I would have saved an awful lot of money that I could have used for things that perhaps were more necessary. Maybe improving my house, or putting some furniture, new furniture in the living room. I find that the less I have in possessions, the more fully I use what I have. I said it here, the less I have, the more fully I use what is at hand. If I have fewer books, then I do read the books I have. If I have fewer toys or games, I'm much more likely to use them than if I have many, many of them. I grew up in a little small village or town up in the state of Michigan. There were only 400 or 500 people living in my little town, and you had to drive 40 miles or an hour to get to a bigger town to do shopping. Now, we did not have a lot of things when I was a boy. We did have a good house to live in. We had clothes. We had plenty of food. And in those days in America, most all of us had both a mom and a dad and a good family life. We had all the things that were necessary. And we did not have all kinds of positive or possessions, material possessions, but we just enjoyed ourselves. We would go into the woods. We would fish. Sometimes we hunted. Sometimes we just walked or explored. Other times we would take a small saw or axe and build a small lean-to cabin. We just enjoyed what we had. I think there are some lessons there. I think sometimes we can look, if we're older, I think we can look back at our childhoods, perhaps when we had less, and yet we were very happy, and we made do with what we had. Maybe we would take a baseball and go down to the field and play baseball, or a basketball and go and shoot hoops. We didn't really need much, and we stayed quite happy. So I think there's a very good lesson to be learned here. Less is more. If you can be contented with what you have and not be always wanting more, you will live a much, much happier life. Shishi, thank you for listening to me. Goodbye.